any part of the rim, coach.
14 for Luka on the logo.
What is going on here?
He's on one tonight. Doncic again, another three. Got it. He's a flamethrower. He is up.
Edwards on Kyrie initially.
Irving on the move and through traffic. Wow. Three. Irving wide open. Two. Doncic inside, and that's out to Doncic. Washington, nice ball rotation. It's Washington for three, going head to head. Lively, Irving, open triple.
Lively on the floor at the center.
That's a
Like that, Reg. Number one, I was late to do it because my feeling was
Minnesota, right? There was low expectations coming in, and now they're an assist and finish here by Lively.
What is up today, Dallas Mavericks fans, MFFLs? Your team has done it. The Dallas Mavericks will be facing off against the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals next Thursday. The Dallas Mavericks defeated the third seed, 56 win, the Minnesota Timberwolves, number one defense in the entire NBA, according to statistics. The number one team defensively, again, in the entire NBA, the Dallas Mavericks took down the Minnesota Timberwolves last night in 5 games. Game 5, final score. The Dallas Mavericks 124, the Minnesota Timberwolves 103. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, those are the guys that you're going to obviously have to talk about because these are again, we're talking about just premier offensive bucket getters in the NBA. Luka Doncic set the tone. But before we get into all that, I want you guys to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, that like button. Go ahead and smash that. I want to get these likes up so we can start to get this content rolling around more like-minded fans such as yourself. But the Dallas Mavericks, we're talking about a team was counted out from the offseason. Counted out, but especially the way that the NBA the season ended last year. We're talking about the quotes in quotations, the tank job that the national media love to kind of throw out. Although the Dallas Mavericks, obviously, that was not a team that was built for success. But you knew when you had guys like a Nico Harrison, you had a Mark Cuban who was still in charge somewhat at that point, and now we're talking about the new ownership. This was I guess you want to say this was a situation the Dallas Mavericks knew they had to come in here and they had to hit it as hard as they can. You have a Luka Doncic who had 36 points last night. You had a Kyrie Irving also had 36 points last night. You threw in some of these other guys, the combination of Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green off the bench, Jaden Hardy off the bench, Maxi Kleber. The list can go on. This was a team effort, and I'm going to get into it real quick, but I'm going to say, shout out Jason Kidd. I've been very critical of this guy because, again, sometimes throughout the entirety of a regular season, you're talking about sometimes I felt like we blow some games. I felt like we give some games away due to lack of adjustments. But when you're talking about the cerebral mind, the instinctual mind, a guy with a high basketball IQ of a guy like Jason Kidd, from right now, I am letting that all go. This is a guy I'm going to put my faith in. I'm going to say he understands his team. You just have to get him the right pieces. And the Dallas Mavericks, talking about Nico Harrison, he helped do that. Bringing the right guys in, some hard-nosed hoopers. We're not talking about guys that are 3-and-D. We're not talking about guys that are just athletic. We're talking about guys that know how to play the game of basketball. Hard, intensity, hustle. That is what this team has adopted. That is what Jason Kidd, again, I'm going to give lots of credit for implementing into this team. And then when you're having your number 1 and number 2 guys, and I don't care who I guess you want to say interchangeable on any given night, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, those were the guys that it started with last night, and especially Luka Doncic in the first quarter. You know, when you're talking about a guy like Luka Doncic, he is an ultimate tone setter. When he comes out aggressive, the rest of the team, more times than not, are going to pick up that same intensity, pick up that same energy, and last night did not fall short of that. This is just an exciting time as a Dallas Maverick fan, obviously, because I've been a Maverick fan for a long time, prior to even Dirk Nowitzki being on the team. So we're talking about a long time. I've seen some good teams, some bad teams, some teams that were just right there but did not get it done, and some teams that were just one-off. But the Dallas Mavericks, this is an exciting time. You are now in the final two. You are one of the final 2 teams, I'm going to say, obviously, left in the playoffs. The NBA Finals, the Larry O'Brien Trophy is the last thing that you're fighting for, and you could not ask for more than that. The Dallas Mavericks with a gentleman's sweep of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Game 5, again, Luka Doncic came out here in the first quarter. I've been kind of critical, and again, we're talking about, obviously, when you're getting into some of these situations, when you're talking about a team that they do have some players that are going to fight. They have some players that you do. I'm not going to say you have any disadvantages. But coming into this series, obviously, you hear the national media, the number one thing they're talking about, the big men that the Minnesota Timberwolves have. Just the guy, the sixth man of the year, defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert, but the sixth man of the year, Naz Reid. You're talking about the talent, a 22-year-old talent, a guy, and Anthony Edwards is. You're talking about Karl Anthony Towns. Again, he is a wild card. You never know what Karl Anthony Towns you're going to get on a night-to-night basis, but that is a guy with ultimate talent. We're talking about a former #1 overall pick in Karl Anthony Towns. The Dallas Mavericks were kind of counting out. You're talking about a guy, Jaden McDaniels. The biggest thing you're going to say, the Dallas Mavericks have been the underdogs for the entirety of the playoffs. I don't care if we're talking about the Clippers series. I don't care if you're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder series. You're talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves series, and obviously facing off against the Boston Celtics, who we'll talk about a little bit, but I don't want to get too much into that because I just want you guys and myself especially to enjoy this moment. Enjoy the ride the Dallas Mavericks have taken us on, and enjoy what we still have an opportunity to be able to accomplish. It's just an exciting time once again. I'm glad. I know you guys are just excited as I am. Again, if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, we've seen some ups and downs from this roster, from this franchise. Especially we're going back to a couple years ago, the Western Conference Finals run. No longer having a guy like Jalen Brunson. No longer having a guy like Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm going to say a crowd favorite, a fan favorite around here. No longer having these guys and now having to flip around and say, what is the new direction? Obviously, we can talk about a guy like Dwight Powell, who's, I guess you want to say, calling your starting center for the ultimate years. We're talking about, and one thing you've seen, the Dallas Mavericks, this is just something where you're talking about bringing in a guy like Nico Harrison, a guy who had not had general manager, player operation, I guess you want to say experience in the NBA, a former Nike guy. Again, now let's be clear. That means he knows how to negotiate. He knows how to be in tough situations where you have to figure out, okay, this is the direction we're looking to go in, and you have to put your foot down and say, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to believe in my vision, and we're going to go full-fledged with it. Nico Harrison, again, it's just so much that you can put, so much credit you can give a guy like this. We have seen Luka Doncic is a talent you cannot waste. You could not give any more years because obviously we're talking about still very young, even sitting right now at 25 years old. And we're going to get into his resume up to this point of his career. But a 25-year-old superstar, and I'm going to say generational talent in Luka Doncic, because you don't get these every year. You don't get these every 5 to 10 years. These guys come around every so often, and you have got to maximize what they're able to bring to your team and to your franchise. And that's exactly what this front office has done. That's exactly what this coaching staff has done. And the players, the guys around Luka Doncic, the guys around Kyrie Irving. You can continue to add the list like I already said. The guys around this entire situation, everyone included, has just completely maximized what their potential is, and again, still place themselves in position to be able to reach the ultimate goal, which is the Larry O'Brien Championship Trophy. You cannot ask for more than that as a Dallas Mavericks fan. Taking a look at the box score from last night, PJ Washington a plus 17, 12 points. We're talking about 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. This is what I'm talking about when we're talking about the glue guys that you have. You're talking about a Derrick Jones Jr. who had 5 points, a plus 11. And to me, when you talk about a PJ Washington, you talk about a Derrick Jones Jr., the stat sheet is not what you're focusing on. You're focusing on their impact. These are guys that Nico Harrison brought in, and they were meant to be guys that are going to be your glue people. We're talking about a Reggie Bullock, obviously, Dorian Finney-Smith. These are some of the guys that we had, I guess you want to say, we grew accustomed to, especially helping out on that Western Conference Finals run, but they were kind of one side. You want to say very limited in their game. You're not getting much many rim runs. You're not getting rim runs, excuse me. You're not getting many opportunities to get out in transition. These were guys that kind of had that set half-court offensive type of set skills, and that's what they were going to be able to add to this team. Obviously, they're going to give lots of credit, but you're talking about taking that up a step. You're talking about a Derrick Jones Jr. Even with 5 points, the impact he had, we're talking about having to cover guys like a Karl Anthony Towns, an Anthony Edwards at certain points, a Naz Reid you saw at certain points. This is going to be a guy where you're talking about a Derrick Jones Jr. I want him back on this team because you cannot recreate the intensity and the impact that he brings to this team. We're talking about a guy who is relentless, as he stated multiple times in his postseason run. I fear no man. And to me, that's kind of the mentality that this team has taken on. Talk about, again, going into PJ Washington. Again, plus 17 on the plus minus. 12 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 assists, and you saw, 2 of 5 from the three-point line. I'm going to say, and Derrick Jones Jr., even going 1 of 2 from the three-point line, that just opens up some other things that the other team has to worry about, because you already know these are high-flying guys that are going to play hard. They're going to get after you on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to find their spots on the offensive side of the ball when you're playing next to just amazing. We're talking about historical NBA talents in a Luka Doncic and a Kyrie Irving. Your number one job is to stay available, stay ready, and make impact plays when you can. I don't care if that's on the defensive side of the ball, getting these 50-50 loose balls on the ground, getting extra rebounds and extra offensive possessions for your team, whatever it calls for. PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., these are some of the guys that you're going to be able to hang your hat on. And again, I want Derrick Jones Jr. back because he was one of the later acquisitions for this team in the offseason. We're talking about later on. We're almost at training camp, and you're bringing in a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. just because he has some potential. He has some traits that you were able to think, maybe we can kind of throw this into the mix and see what he can help bring to this team. And obviously, you brought in a guy like Grant Williams, who you traded for, and you're thinking Derrick Jones Jr. will be able to find his spot maybe here and there, maybe sometimes a spot starter, a guy that you can just find some minutes for on any given night. But he showed and proved to be much more than that. PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., again, what their impact, what they brought to this team, and what they have brought to this team cannot go unspoken about. And then talking about a Daniel Gafford, a guy with the Washington Wizards. I said personally, I kind of seen this guy for a couple years at this point, and I kind of had a big love for his game, because when you're kind of seeing so many times in the situations, when you're in a bad situation, we're in a bad environment and a roster, we're looking around and saying, you had guys like Spencer Dinwiddie there who spoke about the culture in Washington. You talk about guys, I believe the only time that Daniel Gafford had really experienced the playoffs was the year Russell Westbrook is there with Bradley Beal in that situation, and we're looking and saying, this is a guy, to me personally, I felt he had a skill set that a really good team would be able to use. Last night, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 2 of them on the offensive end, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, which is big. We're talking about these big men, because obviously when you get to the situation, you're going to see a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're going to be impactful. They're going to try to play hard. They're going to, and again, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to say it what it is. Dirty at certain points. They like to throw elbows, especially talking about a Rudy Gobert, a Karl Anthony Towns, a little bit sloppy play sometimes, and those can be reckless type plays. So you're gonna have to knock down free throws. So even something as simple as just going to 5 from 6 from the free throw line, that opens up and unlocks a little bit more for your team in general. But like I said, Daniel Gafford with 11 points last night and a nice block. Let's get into the next guy, obviously, the two-headed monster, the second part of that two-headed monster. The first part, I don't care which order you want to put him in. They're both very vital to this team. Dereck Lively, a guy we missed tremendously in Game 4, and I'm going to say that was the biggest difference in what the Dallas Mavericks were able to do. It's crazy talking about a guy maybe 20 years old, maybe a rookie, and second-team all-rookie team, which I firmly believe he should have been first team, because just the impact that he did bring. Dereck Lively last night with 9 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. That's one thing that doesn't get talked about enough to me personally. We're talking about national media-wise, or even just locally sometimes. Dereck Lively is a playmaking type center. He's not afraid of the moment. He's not afraid. You don't see him lock up, because some things, what you saw last night after Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving really started rolling, and the Minnesota Timberwolves found themselves in a situation where now you're having to ask yourself, how do we shut this thing down? How do we at least slow it down somewhat? So now you start to see the Minnesota Timberwolves attack and blitz those and trap a little bit more off the pick and roll. And when you get the ball into a guy like Dereck Lively's hands, which Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving has shown the utmost confidence in doing, he can find the open man, whether that's cutting to the basket, whether that's just hitting the open man behind the three-point line. And last night, you had guys knocking down shots. Dereck Lively, the impact he has brought as a 20-year-old rookie. It's crazy to talk about a guy potentially being the third best player and third most impactful player on your team. And to me, it's crazy enough to have that conversation, because as much as I talk about Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington, to me, it wavers from night to night, because honestly, you can say, if you take away any of these guys, we don't have the same team. You take PJ Washington off the court. Do we have the same defense? Do we have the same team? No, we do not. You take Derrick Jones Jr. out of the rotation. Do we have the same team? We do not. You take Dereck Lively out, and to me, I'm going to say, but the impact that he showed, just not even having him in Game 4 and what he brought to this team, it cannot go unspoken about once again. 3 blocks as well. Again, this combination of Dereck Lively and Daniel Gafford last night, putting up 20 points, I believe, 4 blocks total, about 17 rebounds. This is something we're going to be able to hang our hats on going forward. And I'm not even going to who should be a starter, who should be a backup, or not. Again, we're not talking about backups because I kind of liken it to the same situation I used to look at a guy like Jason Terry. Yeah, he was coming off the bench. He was our sixth man. But to me, I always call those guys a sixth starter, essentially, because their impact and what they're, I guess you want to say, I guess you want to say how valuable they are to the team cannot just be understated. And we're talking about Derek Lively in that same tone. 9 points, 8 rebounds. The impact that he brought in 25 minutes, 3 of 3, I believe, but 3 of 6 on the free throw line, but 3 of 3 on field goals, and going to his entirety, the stats entirety, in the entirety of the series, we're talking about a guy that did not miss one shot. I believe 16 of 16 on field goals. I am excited about the future of a Derek Lively because going forward, he's going to do nothing but add to his game, to me, in my personal opinion. He's going to continue, and I'm not even asking him to be a three-point shooter, but we see he has that touch. Whether we're talking about pregame, whether we're talking about in practice clips, whatever it is, Derek Lively has so much game to build, but being a 20-year-old, having a Tyson Chandler as your mentor, just again, we're talking about the sponge and the, I guess you want to say, the adversity he's gone through in his personal life, especially this year. We're looking for a guy like Derek Lively. He plays so hard, and you could tell he just loves the game. He loves being around the guys, and that's the number one thing you can spot from this team is the chemistry they have. I guess you want to say just the fire that this team plays with, and they love to play together. They love to be together. That's not something that you can just find every day. So you have got to take advantage of your opportunities when you come across a roster that has that makeup. This team loves to play with each other, and again, this is just exciting. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. Going to, again, Jaden Hardy, I believe, with 8 minutes, 7 points last night. I'm going to say I'm excited for Jaden Hardy's future. Knocking down a big three. We're talking about when now you're still kind of in that limbo mode of the game where you're trying to figure out, okay, the Minnesota Timberwolves start to hit a couple shots here and there, and now you're thinking, I believe the Dallas Mavericks' biggest lead was about 36 points at one point in this game, and you're asking yourself, okay, we can't let them chip away too much. I believe the league gets down about, 22, 21 at some point. But now, Jaden Hardy hitting big shots off the bench, going 3 of 5. In 8 minutes, he is going to be a bucket. This is a guy I'm going to say easily can step into that Tim Hardaway Jr. six-man role that we kind of thought he would be. Tim Hardaway Jr. coming into this season. Jaden Hardy can take that over, and to me, he has a more versatile game. We're talking, we've seen the development of Jaden Hardy in just playmaking ability, I'm gonna say. We saw certain stretches, especially we're talking going back to the Oklahoma City Thunder series, and where you're talking about Jaden Hardy can come in here, he can find you he can hit the guys, especially a lot when you have so many lob threats. The lob threats on this team, but Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., when we get really rolling, and just seeing Jaden Hardy being able to control that even for small stretches, I'm excited about his future, as I've talked about many times up to this point. We have so much to work with. Josh Green, it's not even the numbers. The biggest thing you see about a guy with Josh Green, you're going to say, 2 points last night? 2 steals? He plays hard. 18 minutes for Josh Green. The biggest excitement for Josh Green, to me personally, I'm going to say, is, again, one of these glue guys we're talking about, these guys that help you make championship runs. Josh Green is going to give you everything he has. You can talk about some of the mistakes here and there, but again, that doesn't bother me much because one thing you can never coach is I guess you want to say, it's just energy. Sometimes the number one thing is you're going to have guys that have all the talent in the world, that have just the best skill sets, but they're not giving you everything that they have. Josh Green, I have never once questioned that the entirety of time that he's been with the Dallas Mavericks. Josh Green is going to give you everything. If he has 5% left in the tank, trust and believe, you're going to get exactly that. So this is something I'm going to be able to just say, we can hang our hat on. This Dallas Mavericks team has built something. This rotation has built something. And going into the NBA Finals, you're now going to have to add in guys like a Maxi Kleber, who's going to be now a little bit more entrenched in the rotation, getting back from that, I guess you want to say that short stint he missed. I believe missing by, 8 or 9 playoff games straight. You're now going to be able to get some of these guys back in a rhythm. They're now going to have the excitement of winning the Western Conference Finals. And now you're going to be able to go forward and say, now is your time, guys. 4 more games and the championship is ours. There's no more excuses to be there. Are no more excuses to be made. There's nothing else to play for. There's nothing to hold back for. This is now your moment. Go ahead and grab it. We're talking about, this is just exciting. Then quickly, obviously, we can talk about the 2 guys as I talked about already. Luka Doncic last night, 36 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, I believe, and I saw a stat this morning. Luka Doncic is the first player in NBA history to lead his team in pretty much every statistical category heading into an NBA Finals. The first time. We're talking about in points, rebounds, assists, steals, the 3-point makes. It goes, the list goes on. This is going to be a guy we're going to talk about generational at some point. That even still starts to feel like an understatement. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves because there's still something to achieve, but Luka Doncic showed this can be his league. If we continue to just put the right pieces around him, keep the right pieces around him, this can be Luka Doncic's league for a long time. You cannot understate the talent and the fear that he brings to opponents, and not even just opponents. We're talking about the fan bases, because when you're the one thing you have seen, and we're talking about the special talents throughout the entire NBA, you're looking and saying, Kyrie Irving, obviously, the special talent that he is. I'm definitely going to talk about Kyrie Irving really quick, but we're talking about Luka Doncic, the best of the best. We've seen it through any sport. I don't care whether you're talking about a Tom Brady, a Michael Jordan, whatever it is. The best of the best. They use every little thing as motivation. I don't care if it's a fan right on court playing, standing on court side, just talking trash, whatever it is. He's gonna eat that up. He's gonna use it, and he's definitely gonna chirp it back at you. You see Luka Doncic last night going at the Minnesota Timberwolves bench. You see him going at the NBA, at some of these fans, and we're talking about Luka Doncic. He will not hold back when he's letting it all fly. Anything goes. He can say anything he wants because he's gonna let you know. You don't want to poke the bear. That is exactly what you don't do with a Luka Doncic. If you say, what's the old motto, I guess you would say, let a sleeping dog lie, that completely applies to a guy like Luka Doncic. This is going to be exciting to see the trajectory of his career. We're talking about now a guy winning the Western Conference Finals MVP, the Magic Johnson Award, I believe it's called now. And then you're looking at a guy just being able to take his team to the NBA Finals for the first time at 25 years. 25 years of age. Again, a guy still just hitting his prime. What can be considered his prime years. Giving him that experience, giving him what the situation that he's going to be in going forward. The Dallas Mavericks, we are in a special place, and we cannot completely ignore that at all, because we have got to keep focused on the goal at hand, but also there's nothing wrong with just being excited about the potential of the future. And then throwing in Kyrie Irving himself. Another 36 points, plus 17 and a plus minus. Like I said, plus minus to me, sometimes it goes without context, and sometimes it doesn't even really tell the full thing, because sometimes you can be a player that's not really impactful. You just happen to be on the court with a bunch of other impactful guys. Kyrie Irving, that is not true for in this game, because we're talking about 36 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds himself. There was a stretch of the game, obviously, where you see at some point Luka Doncic is coming into the game. He's going off early in the game, and the number one, I guess you want to say, one of my personal thoughts going to that second quarter especially. Hopefully we don't give up any momentum. Hopefully we can continue to keep this train rolling, because you don't want to let the Minnesota Timberwolves, in a game where they're having to fight for their lives, be able to kind of eat their way back into it. Next thing you know, it's not really even a double-digit lead anymore. One thing Kyrie Irving came and did, he was ready to ball from the outset. Obviously, Luka Doncic is rolling, so Kyrie Irving, the biggest thing we can give him a lot of credit for is just the understanding. We talk about when we saw last season, obviously, I believe this was not a trade for last season. I said it at the moment. This is a trade for the future. This is a trade for the offseason. You cannot complain when you're adding a Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and saying, these are now our two guys. What can we put around them? I don't see what some people had. You talking about national media. They were not seeing the bigger picture. They're thinking, okay, you got Kyrie Irving. The Dallas Mavericks season didn't go the way they wanted it to. And Dallas Mavericks, Kyrie Irving, and Luka Doncic, they can't play together. To me, that was complete nonsense from the beginning, because one thing I was stating is the team was still exactly what it was. And at the end of the day, we traded away some pieces in the Dorian Finney-Smith. We traded away a Spencer Dinwiddie. These type goals where you're looking and saying, we are looking to just see what we're going to be able to bring. And when you're adding in a guy like Luka Doncic adding into Kyrie Irving to Luka Doncic, you're going to say, this is just something to build on. And what did Nico Harrison do? Just like I said, you went, and not only did you try to hit, I guess you want to say, kick the tires on a guy like Grant Williams. You saw the potential in that potentially, and what could potentially have been a nice rotation piece for us, which obviously did not pan out. And what I will also give a lot of credit for is not even, I guess, wasting any time to be able to say, okay, you know what? I feel like we can go a different direction this same season. Let's do that. And that brings in a guy like PJ Washington. That helps bring in a guy like Daniel Gafford. We're talking about just some of these acquisitions that were made during the middle of the regular season. But Kyrie Irving, like I said, that momentum will drive where you start to think, okay, we cannot let the Minnesota Timberwolves get back in this game. Kyrie Irving came out firing, and he was not missing. Obviously, he and Luka did not have the best game 4. So I said, my personal opinion, I already knew coming to this game, these guys are not going to come in here playing timid. They're not going to come in here because one thing you can't let the Minnesota Timberwolves do is sneak away with another game. And now you're sitting at home saying, why exactly are we sitting and finding ourselves in a game 6? Because these guys are not being aggressive. Kyrie came in and did nothing but just add to what Luka Doncic was doing. And when you're talking about your 2 best players on your team, again, I don't even get into the first player, second player. I call it 1A, 1B on any given night. One of them is going to be rolling a little bit more. One of them might not be. And then that's when you step out of the way. But when you have both of these guys in your rotation and in your lineup, this is going to be something magical to watch because Luka Doncic, when the ball is falling through the net and you cannot stop him. When Kyrie Irving, he sees the ball going through the net, you cannot stop him. We already know about the handles. We know he can get to any spot he wants to. Kyrie Irving, it cannot be understated the veteran leadership he's brought to this team. Now, being to the final, he's been to the final, 4 times already up to this point, something like that. So we're talking about a Kyrie Irving. He has that veteran experience sitting at 32 years old. Luka Doncic kind of jokes about it in the post-game press conference. He says, this is a very young team. Let's start there. I still talk about a guy like Max Prosper, who I feel is going to be able, especially, that's why I'm very big on bringing back a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., because now he can continue to learn from those guys, a Derrick Jones Jr., a PJ Washington going forward. But adding in what Kyrie Irving sitting at 32 years old, this is going to be something that we can hang on to for the next few years, in my opinion, because when you watch Kyrie Irving's game, it's timeless. There's nothing that shows you that he's going to fall off anytime soon. And if we can just continue to ride this momentum, ride this wave, and just continue to add pieces and make sure we have the right guys around Luka and Kyrie, the Dallas Mavericks are not going to be disappointed in what this team can continue to do going forward into the future. The city is buzzing right now. You're now looking at a situation where you're saying, obviously, the DFW, we've had some success. The Texas Rangers winning the World Series last season. You're talking about the Dallas Stars also sitting in the Western Conference Finals right now. You're talking about the Dallas Mavericks now making a trip to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2011. The third time, I believe, in NBA in team franchise history. And you're talking about the second time it's getting to the Western Conference Finals in the last 3 seasons. The Dallas Mavericks are setting the tone, and we're now having something to hang our hats on as a city in general. So I'm proud of this team. I'm very proud of what they can still accomplish. We don't even have to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves because that's over with. It doesn't matter. The Dallas Mavericks with a nice gentleman sweep. Yeah, you came in, you stole a game in game 4, a 5-point win. And my biggest thing is, it's kind of one of those games where now I'm pretty much on the board. I'm on the train. As a Dallas Mavericks fan, go ahead. Crap on anybody that was talking crazy because this is our time to enjoy. Obviously, as a fan base, we have a couple more days to enjoy this because the NBA Finals start next Thursday. But right now, go ahead and let it all out. All the frustrations, all the noise talking from national media, from local media sometimes, just from other fan bases. Because again, when a team is down, when somebody is down, that's when everybody's obviously going to start to try to pile on you. That's when also is going to show what heart do you have. The Dallas Mavericks fought back, being the underdogs, the betting on underdogs in every single series up to this point, and that'll continue going into the finals. But I'm not concerned with that. This is now where you're looking at saying, it's us against you. You're looking at saying, obviously on the opposite side of a Minnesota Timberwolves, looking at a guy like Anthony Edwards. I'm going to give a guy like that some credit because let's be clear, he is still 22 years old. He talks a lot, which that's going to bring you a whole lot of criticism when you don't get it done. But that is a young guy who's going to be around for a long while, as long as he can stay healthy, as long as the Minnesota Timberwolves can continue to also put the nice pieces around him as well. But the Dallas Mavericks taking down a team. We're talking about the #1 seed in the Western Conference in the Oklahoma City Thunder last series. We're talking about the 4th seed, the Los Angeles Clippers, some superstar talent, some future Hall of Famers, obviously, on that. And you had a banged up Kawhi Leonard, but I personally said, Kawhi Leonard is not the guy that everybody thinks is going to shut down a Luka Doncic. Paul George is not shutting down a Luka Doncic. That was never going to be a situation where I was worried about a situation and saying they can lock down. To me, there's not one player in this league that can lock down Luka Doncic. And let's be clear, the Boston Celtics have many looks and many very good defenders to throw at a guy like Luka. But obviously, the game is much more than that. The team is much more than that. So throwing in Kyrie Irving into the mix and a PJ Washington who's always a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get. You might get one of those blow-up games. That could be the difference in some of these games going forward in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, in NBA Finals, excuse me. Forget the Western Conference Finals, in the NBA Finals. And then again, just some other guys off the bench in certain stretches of Jaden Hardy, some of these guys. The Dallas Mavericks, they took down the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team, again, #1 defense in the entire league. We're talking about now the Dallas Mavericks. They were now rolling for that those last few months of the season, and to me, it was still being understated. You had maybe a guy like Tim Legler, who I'm going to give lots of credit for. He might have been one of the only national pundits you saw giving the Dallas Mavericks some love and some credit and saying, hey, let's be clear, slow down, people. We can obviously say the Denver Nuggets at that point was still a favorite. You're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were still believed to be young, but they're the #1 team in the Western Conference, a very tough Western Conference. But for the Dallas Mavericks to wrap this thing up with 50 wins in the regular season, even again, going back to the fact, it's kind of funny now because as great as this season has been, it still kind of puts Luka Doncic's 73-point game, I guess you want to say, on the back burner a little bit. That game's not really talked about enough now. Again, now we're talking about going to the future. That's obviously going to be giving him even more love because now you're going to be able to have a grand scheme and a grand scale of what this season was for this entire team and the franchise in general. But when you're talking about what the Dallas Mavericks have been able to accomplish, I'm not going to this NBA Finals afraid of anybody. You're going to have to get out there and actually get the job done. You're going to have to scheme up the right, I guess you want to say make the right adjustments. You're going to have to put your players in the right position as Jason Kidd and everyone else and the rest of the team in general. But the Dallas Mavericks, we have a fighting chance. We have something to play for, and that's the Larry O'Brien championship trophy, and that will make you NBA champions. That is the goal for the Dallas Mavericks. That is the goal for us as a fan base. So I'm proud. I know you guys are as well. Go ahead and again, smash that like button. I want to get these videos rolling because we are in a special time right now. That torch has been passed from a Dirk Nowitzki directly. It's almost poetic. Dirk Nowitzki's very last season is Luka Doncic's first. That is crazy. We're talking about just that passing of the torch. That's, again, very poetic in the thinking. So this is just something exciting. There are no other words to be using for the situation that we're in right now as a Dallas Mavericks fan, as the Dallas Mavericks franchise in general. We have so much more to play for, and I could not be more excited, as I know you guys are as well. Go ahead and smash that like button. Comment down below. Who do you think is going to be the biggest key player in the NBA Finals? Who do you think was the biggest key player in this Western Conference Finals? Obviously, we can give Luka Doncic. Give me a different answer other than Luka Doncic. If you have to take Luka Doncic off the board, who exactly you think was the most impactful guy? Obviously, we could talk about a Derek Lively. That cannot be understated again. This is going to be a guy I'm going to be looking at and saying he's going to be a favorite around here for a very long time. Sitting at 20 years old, not even 21. He's sitting at 20 years old, a rookie. We're talking about a guy that is going to get so much love. He's a fiery guy. He plays with fire. He plays with intensity. And that's going to be a guy you're also going to be able to call a leader going forward. I truly do believe it. So go ahead again, smash that like button. Drop all the comments down below. I want to know what you guys think about this experience up to this point, what you feel about the experience going forward, and just what you feel about the Dallas Mavericks are sitting as a franchise right now in the entire scheme of the NBA. So I appreciate you guys. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. Go ahead and definitely get to hit that subscribe button. For anybody new here, I want you guys to know this is exactly what we do. Your guys' opinions are very valuable here. You guys are very important. I can't have this channel without you guys. So I appreciate you guys. Go ahead and throw it all in. We have so much more to continue to play for. That Larry O'Brien trophy. As always, go Mavs. The ride continues, and enjoy the rest of your day.